Hello and welcome to the Wealthy Artist Summit. This is Nikol Peterman of Zen Red, and here we are breaking the starving artist mold, tapping into your confidence and taking control of your career. For me as a professional performer and choreographer, I definitely found myself in scarcity, in a very starving mindset, and it affected all areas of my life. It affected my bank account, my relationships, and it especially affected my art. So when I was handed tools around mindset, it opened up possibility across the board. As a life coach, I see it so prevalent in the industry, so I wanted to create a summit to address this issue. And today I am so thrilled to have as my guest Dr. Lisa E. Hale. She is the entrepreneur's champion of true greatness. She's a keynote speaker, trainer, consultant, and executive coach. She's an experienced business development expert and coach who helps high-performing leaders and organizations up their game. She brings the breadth and depth of 2 decades of business experience. As a facilitator, author, and business consultant, Dr. Hale applies direct accountability and warm acceptance to reformulate the culture of work and purpose. Clients quickly identify and clear obstacles to success that have kept them from the results they wish for in their professional and personal lives. Dr. Hale's clients have dubbed her the transformation engineer, facilitating and accelerating change. Lisa served for more than 10 years at Los Alamos National Laboratory as an internal program and leadership developer, strategic planning facilitator, and chief liaison with the Department of State. She has worked as an international leadership trainer and facilitator since 2005. Lisa, welcome.
Thank you. It's wonderful to be here, Nicole. I've so enjoyed our contact and so enjoy your energy. So it's just lovely to be here.
I know, and the audience doesn't have the privilege of the wonderful phone conversation that we had prior, which I guess was the week or before, where I wish I had been pressing record on that phone conversation because there was so much wonderful stuff in that. So I'm really grateful to have you here. So I guess my first question for you is, I know you have a very unique model of extraordinary leadership and how that applies in our personal and business lives. Would you like to share that with us?
Oh, sure. So this model has really evolved. So it turns out that I've worked in and around business since I was 9 years old. So a really, really long time. And I've been around very impressive leaders, country leaders, big corporate leaders, lab leaders, and also leaders who are just those, they're the hidden secret leaders in our community. They're the custodian at the elementary school who really makes sure that the kids are learning manners out on the playground and things like that. So I've really looked at leadership for a very long time and taken a pretty close gander at what is it that makes the difference between those leaders, whether they have position, power, and title, or they're just leaders. What makes the difference between those who are truly extraordinary and make a remarkable lasting difference in the place where they are and the ones who don't? And it comes down to, maybe it's 4 pillars, 4 keys. One of them is kind of more the container that they all fit in, and the other 3 are the 3 pillars. And the way I talk about it and look at it with my clients and also when I speak is that we all have a choice in every moment of choosing between love and fear. And extraordinary leaders choose love every opportune moment. They do. So the reason that that's important is because when we have an environment of fear, it's impossible for people to be creative, to solve problems, to do their best work. But it's also impossible for people to tell the truth. It turns out that kids lie because they're afraid of the consequences of telling the truth. And adults hide who they truly are and their real ideas and their real creativity when they're fearful. So extraordinary leaders create an environment that eliminates fear, and the only way to eliminate fear is to really choose love over fear. And that makes it possible to go to the second pillar, which is to choose authenticity or truth over hiding out. And when we hide out, we actually hide our ability to make a real difference. We hide who we truly are. We hide our best ideas. And we also hide the truth about what's driving us. And we also tend to hide the difference that we could be making in a given situation. So when we do that, that leads us to the third pillar, which is by hiding, it makes it absolutely, completely impossible for us to take any personal responsibility. So extraordinary leaders are fierce owners of every choice that they make, and they empower their teams and the people around them to be fierce owners too. And fierce ownership is contrasted with blame, choosing to blame either other people or yourself, right? So those are the three kind of core things: choosing love over fear, choosing truth over hiding, and choosing fierce ownership over blame. Well, the key is whatever place on that dial you might fall, whether you think sometimes it's okay to choose fear, but most of the time love, or wherever you might fall, the most important thing that extraordinary leaders do, whether they are performers or leading companies, is they're congruent. So what I mean by that is that if they at home believe that love is the way to go in their communications, they'll choose that at work too. If they believe in their art or in their performance or in their actions in their chosen profession that authentic self-expression is the way to go, they'll also do that wherever they are. And when they are fierce owners of every choice, they are fierce owners of every choice everywhere. And those congruent people are the ones that are truly the extraordinary leaders. They're the ones who inspire us with whatever it is they produce, whatever realm that's in, because we trust them and we know it's the real deal.
And what a beautiful foundation, because then that's setting up that everything in the life is together. It's all related, as opposed to I hear this a lot from my friends that are in the business, that it's like, oh, well, I will put my effort in when I'm doing a show or when I'm doing the audition, but then they'll go to their job, or maybe they'll go to their home or to their relationships, and it's not congruent. It's like they're putting energy in just specific places in their life. Or it could be the exact opposite, that they're frustrated that they're not getting where they want to in their career.
Right, and pretending otherwise. Maybe.
Right. So I love what you were saying, because in being congruent, then that means that whatever energy you're putting into your art, that you're putting into all areas of your life. So It's not just about doing your best at your audition or doing your best when you're working on your art, but that goes into all areas of your life. Or vice versa, if you're really, really frustrated in your art, that what if you're putting all of your energy into your relationship as opposed to putting it into everything? So I'm curious, how do you help your clients with that congruency? Because that really is the foundation for everything.
I agree with you. I think that is the foundation for everything, and that's probably the core of how I work with clients, whether I'm doing training or coaching or consulting, whatever it is. That's really what I want to get at the heart of with them right away, which is what's not working in your life and what's out of alignment about how you're showing up. And if we can get what you really want in your life and what you really believe, what's core of core importance to you, your core values and your true soul essence, really your heart's desire to show up everywhere in your life and to guide you, then not only will the work product be extraordinary. I mean, that's the secret to extraordinary, right? It's fueled by passion. But not only will that happen, but you'll also be really clear about how to make the choices powerfully in your life that make sure that you're getting what you want and going where you want to go. So if your personal relationship, as we've talked about, happens to be with someone who doesn't empower you and lift you up, and you need to change that, and you stay in it in a way that, isn't powerful, that can really be a suck of vitality. And on the other hand, if your personal relationship matters to you enormously and you're not giving it attention, then that will also take your vitality away.
Oh, yeah. That's even like a higher level awareness is having something that matters so much in your life and you're not giving it attention.
Right, right.
And you
So
probably
it's
see that all the
really,
time with your clients, right?
they do. That's right. And I do. And people do that. I think people experience that. I see clients who say, and that's where the fierce ownership discussion gets pretty deep, actually, because uh, the other two are foundations for fierce ownership. If you don't create a fear-free environment and a truth-telling, hiding-free environment, it's very, very hard to take fierce ownership. But once you take fierce ownership, what does that look like? Some people, and I had a conversation with one of my clients today, some people really think, well, I'm taking responsibility for all the things I've screwed up in my life. and and I had to stop her and say, well, actually, what you're doing is you're running a victim story. And she was very upset with me and said, what do you mean? And I said, anytime you're blaming anybody for your results, whether it's yourself or someone else, it's a victim story. And she said, well, how do you do it differently? And I said, it sounds something like this. Instead of saying, I am taking responsibility. I do realize that all of these things are my fault, and I messed up my marriage, and I messed up my business, and I said, stop. What's really so is I chose to handle the conflict in my marriage in this way. And having chosen that, I got some of what I wanted. Here's what I wanted. This is why I chose that, or what I wanted to get out of it. And some of the things I got are not what I want. So now, how do I choose a different path if what I want is a different outcome? And I asked her, did you hear any blame in that way of thinking about it? And she said, oh no, that is really different. And I said, how do you feel when you say that to yourself instead of, I suck and I did everything bad? And she said, I feel more powerful. I said, oh, that's good. So now, are you able to make a different choice because you have the power to own your choices? So it's really obvious when someone's blaming someone else for everything that they're being, a victim to circumstances, the economy, the world, whatever, right? What we often miss is where we're blaming ourselves. We're still running a victim story. We trick ourselves into thinking that we're being responsible. We're not. We're just being victims. And fierce ownership means owning all of our choices and also, frankly, choosing love over fear, because we only do that when we're not loving ourselves.
I would love to draw a parallel to that because I think that is so prevalent in the industry. I hear a lot of language around a lot of frustration, like, well, I did my best and I don't understand why they're not picking me, or they're picking only people they know, or
Right.
I'm too short, or I'm too tall. And,
Right.
I definitely used all of this language myself. I definitely went on the whole roller coaster spiral. And now on the other side of it, I have an awareness around it. So I understand that at those moments, really what I was doing was beating myself up.
Right.
Saying I didn't feel like I was good enough, but it was easier in that moment to blame the people behind the table for me not getting the job, as opposed to owning what you're talking about. I would love for you to kind of define that difference between accountability and blame.
And I want to say that it is a warrior's path, truly, to take fierce ownership in life. It is the harder road, but the truth is that we get to stand in our life 100% intact, so that we're bringing our whole self and spirit to our lives. And there is no bigger loss than to have gotten to the end of our lives knowing that we didn't live full out, right? So it's a far bigger risk, actually, to not bring our whole selves to our lives than it is to stay hidden. Or to,
That's beautiful.
Or to come out of hiding, I should say, right?
Yeah. So tell me, what would you say to someone? Let's say that they have just given the audition of their lives, and they got, and and they got a terrible reception.
Right.
Maybe the person behind the table was tired or eating, or like it didn't go well. And then they're doing this. So how does the accountability and the blame tie into that moment where the person is coming out of the room and they are starting to feel all of the emotions and all of these things rising?
Right. So there's a famous thing that I had his name a second ago, that the famous golf pro. He has a 7-step rule. If he hits an incredible shot, he gets to take 7 steps dancing around the tee to celebrate. And if he hits a crap shot and it ends up in the sandbox or whatever I'm not a golfer, but whatever they call it, then he also gets to do 7 steps of being pissed about it, right? So it's okay to take a few minutes and just say, oh, I'm so bummed because I wanted that role or that part or that, assignment, and I gave it my all, or I feel like I did, and I didn't get it, and I'm really bummed. It's okay to spend time noticing that you feel that way. In fact, in the Sedona method, which Hale talks about, there's this concept of welcoming all of the feelings that you feel, the good ones, the bad ones, the gracious ones, the not gracious ones, right? And it's okay to do that, because the more we can drop resistance, the more able we are to fiercely own everything about what it is we think, feel, and do. And so there are a lot of questions we can ask ourselves in that situation. One of them would be, I chose to go out for a highly competitive part. I chose that. I chose it because I want to play a big game in my life. And I chose to do that. And I haven't decided yet if I think that I didn't deserve the part or if I did. But whether I got it or not, I knew every time I went out to audition that there was going to be a chance I'd either get it or not get it. There were no guarantees. Now, there's somebody I work with who's brilliant, wonderful man. And he was a rugby player and he was invited to try out for the Olympic team. And when he was 22 years old, he was out on the field 2 days before the Olympic tryouts, and he was practicing. And he planted his left foot, and the opponent slammed into his knee, and his foot stayed put, and the rest of his leg didn't. And that was the end of his career. And he threw a pity party that would, go down in the Guinness Book of World Records for all pity parties for a long time. And it was his mother who said to him, nobody is more upset and disappointed than I am that this happened. But every time you set foot on that field, you knew that this was a possibility.
Whoa.
Every single time. So it's time for you to lose the victim story and decide what you're going to do with the rest of your life.
That is so empowering. Because then you're responsible for everything.
That's right. And that isn't to say he's responsible for the person coming into his knee, but he made the choice to be there. And where this gets dicey for people is in places where they really have been, at the receiving end of a horrible crime, right? But the same truth holds there. And that takes some courage. That takes some serious spine to stand up and take responsibility in your life. It's not blaming yourself. It's not victim blaming or victim bashing. It's not saying you did it to yourself. It's saying, I chose to be in that place at that time.
Right, and that's a very fine line because, like what you were talking about, that moment of coming out of the room and allowing the 7 steps of frustration or,
right.
on the golf course or wherever it is, that you're allowing whatever is coming up as opposed to what is so common, which is that kind of either just like smash it down or the bypass.
Right.
Right. This is not an attractive way to feel. This is not the right way to feel. Therefore, I'm not going to do it.
Right. And we do that because we're afraid, right? We fear looking bad. We fear other people judging us. We fear not being able to recover from the bad feelings. But the real truth is, if we can welcome them and allow them, which frankly, I know for my own sake and I know for my clients, it sometimes takes a confidential thought partner or a coach to help you through that, because some of these things are really hard to see. We have blind spots. There are places where I've been a fierce owner in my life, most of my life, and other places where I was running a giant victim story and had no clue. My own coach had to help me with that. And as soon as I let some of that go, holy cow, things just opened up in my life, and they were not directly related. I let go a victim story about my relationship with my father, and things showed up in my business. And that's not directly related, but it actually works, because guess what? This is great, because I used to go to a doctor of Oriental medicine in Santa Fe who would do acupuncture on me. And I had injured my neck, and he was putting needles in my ankle. And I laid on the table, this little Chinese guy, and I laid on the table, and he was putting needles in my ankle, and I felt it way up in my neck and the other side. And I said, oh my gosh, that's so weird. You put it in there, but I'm feeling it up here. And he looked at me and he said, whole body connected, take a look. And I love that, because, whole life connected, take a look.
And
so the stuff, yeah, go ahead.
No, I was going to say that goes right back to what you said at the very beginning about how everything is tied together. It's like they say the way you do one thing is the way you do everything.
Right. And I really believe that. How you do anything is truly how you do everything. So the way you show up in your life is the way you show up in your life. And you can't go home and be a raging, fire-breathing bad person looking for a...
I know, I was like, what's she going to say?
and not have that impact the rest of your life, because then the rest of your life becomes a mask. So the place to start, and it's hard, like I said, it does take some courage. The place to, and I don't recommend anybody doing this by themselves. I really think you don't
either
by yourself. It's kind of dangerous in there. You just want to, but the place to start is to really welcome whatever is so and be with it. And then if you have to go through forgiveness process or a completion process or rewriting your story about the meaning certain things have, then do that. And again, helpful to have somebody, who has your back while you're going through that jungle, and really do that. And then when you do that, it becomes really, you can say, okay, yeah, I did that, or I chose that, or I felt that, or I thought that, and that led to my feelings, and my feelings led to that pretty not so great behavior. And hey, I've thought about it, and I wish I had done that differently. Here's can I get a remake or redo,
Yeah.
Right. And that is powerful. That's where, we started out talking about extraordinary leadership, but really that's about how you extraordinarily lead and empower your own life, whatever it is you're doing.
And I think there's also an important distinction to share with the audience too about when you're finding your collaborators, when you are finding your community, that they are people that are lifting you.
Right.
So when you're talking about finding that person that helps you and that guides you, it's not someone that's going to be putting you further into that victim cycle.
Right. Right. That's a really great point, because Nikol, how many of us have friends who are just ready to jump on our bandwagon?
Oh my God, they're like waiting. They're like,
yeah, like,
oh, she's down. Let's go.
Yes, you're right. That boyfriend was just awful, or you're right, they were wrong. And at the same time, we don't want the self-righteous, higher, holier than thou friends to say, well, here's what you did, it's got to be, and actually, who talks about this really well? It's Brené Brown.
Yes.
Some of the people here might have heard of. She talks about how important it is to meet our shame gremlins with empathy. And that's really what we're talking about here, is how do we, it's our shame gremlins that keep us from being authentic. And when we can just kind of shine a bright light on them and tell the truth about what we're feeling, but meet them with empathy at the same time and say, oh, I know, that just sucks when that happens. And what are you going to do about it now? Right?
Right. It's like there's the space for acceptance. You are allowed. And then there's the question of action.
Right. And that's fierce ownership. And it's fierce. It's fierce. It is.
I would love to ask you about artists viewing themselves as entrepreneurs because I know that you work a lot with entrepreneurs, and I think that I feel at least with a lot of people in the industry, there's a disconnect between really owning being an entrepreneur for yourself and what that means and viewing yourself as a business.
Yeah, that's a really great question, and I think I've played around with that idea myself in my life because I don't really want to say a closet artist exactly because it's not really in the closet. I do art quilts, and art quilts take up a lot of room, so it's not a closet. It's more like a basement. There's a large amount of space that's occupied.
Basement artist.
Yeah, and and I made a conscious decision actually not to build a business around my art because for me, doing that art was a retreat. It was a reprieve for me, and I just didn't want to put pressure on it as a moneymaker. However, I spent a lot of time learning if I wanted to do it that way, how would I do it? And I realized that it was going to be that for me it felt like this pressure and this heaviness to I have to get up and go to my studio and produce. And I didn't want that there. But one of my best friends in high school is a writer, and her experience of her creative art was that she couldn't spend her time doing anything else. That is what she had to do all day, every day, unless she was walking the dog or playing with her daughter or whatever. And it wouldn't have worked for her to try to do anything else. She did, and it just wasn't her thing. So I think it's really important for artists to be clear that they're choosing it because they really want to make that their life and not because they don't think they can do anything else. That's a pretty important place to start.
So that would be the first step to viewing yourself as an entrepreneur, that it is a purpose.
It's a choice. It's a fierce choice. And if I had chosen that I wanted to do art quilting as a business, I would have had to do some work about changing my thinking, my mindset around being, heavy to go into the studio. I would have had to convert that to a choice somehow. And that would have meant for me saying, yep, I'm choosing this because the alternative is that I do something else that I don't want to do. And even if I don't always feel like it, I can remember why I'm choosing this, and so I'm going to go do it. For me, that's what that thinking shift would have been. For somebody else, it might be a little bit different thinking shift, but it's going to be some kind of shift to make sure that you're fully owning it and fully choosing it. And so my friend, my high school friend, she's done incredibly well. She's won all kinds of awards, and she really chooses it. Now, at first, when she was 16, I have to write. And then when she was 26, it was, I choose this because this is what I want to do. I don't want to do anything else. I could teach. I could do all these other things. I don't want to do anything else. I want to do this. And so since I want to do this and I want to eat and I want to have a consistent, steady income, I'm going to choose to do it as an entrepreneur where I really make it unique and special and a good business. And then she took off.
So I would love for you to talk more about that. Like, what encompasses that moment? When someone says, okay, you know what, I'm going to choose it, I'm going to make this happen, what does that then mean from writing or acting or singing or painting? Like, what is that leap then?
I think in my experience, and I've worked with quite a few people who have made this choice as their business. So, I'm an executive coach, but I also do business coaching for solo entrepreneurs. And a lot of my clients have a creative product that's part of what their business is. And, some of them are musicians, a lot of them are musicians, actually. A lot of musicians. And what I've seen them have to do is say, okay, so there's my perception of what the world wants, and then there's what I do, and I'm not sure those two things line up. And my question to them was always, so how good of a product, how really special and unique and fabulous of a product are you going to produce if you're trying to meet what you think the market wants versus if you're really generating from your passion? Who do you admire in your art? Who does work that just knocks your socks off? Is there anybody who's doing really well in this field who does work that you don't love, but you respect what they're doing? And, somebody brought up David Bowie, and, he was authentic, he put his music out there. There are other really great examples. Yo-Yo Ma, my goodness. There are incredible examples of people who were courageous about doing what was authentic to them. And then the key is to be able to have help looking at it from the outside so you can identify why that's valuable, why it's unique, where the passion is, and make sure that that shows, right? Because if you're going to be an entrepreneur and have something to offer that other people might want to buy, it's going to be really important to make sure that what's unique about it shows. Right?
And do you have some sort of process that you kind of help with your clients for staying true to that? Because, you know, things happen, the purpose might change a little bit, the art is going to change a little bit, the music, the writing, whatever it is. How do you kind of help your clients stay true to that?
Well, the very first thing they do when they work with me is help me understand what staying true to that looks like. So we have to identify what that is. What is your passion? What is your identity? What is your core purpose? What is, what lights you up? Where's your gifting? Where's your spark? And, as well-trained and educated as I am, and I'm, there's a lot of letters after my name, the truth is that I get that from people with real intuition. That's why I do what I do. It's not, I don't think a person can just go to the right schools and learn how to see that about other people. I think there's something about relationship and connection and perception and that kind of thing. And I think that I have my own version of that, and that's what I use to help my clients stay true, but I also help them stay true to it by looking at themselves. How does this feel? There's a kind of a somatic experience of being in your gift that I'm sure you can relate to. When you're a dancer, and when you've made a move or put together a choreographed piece, a little section that is just really from your soul, I bet that feel like I'm already feeling it, just imagining it, just that surge of energy, that feeling where the energy vibrates out to every cell in your skin, and you almost feel like you're lifted off the ground with it, right? Yeah. That's lightness, that is connection, that's where you're really expressing from something through you as opposed to forcing it, right? And that feels different. That feels different than when you're slogging through the same old thing and you kind of hate it and you're doing it because you think you're supposed to. That just feels different.
Yeah, I think that that's so true, and I think that I think about some friends of mine that get stuck, like maybe they're doing a show for a long time, the same show.
Yeah.
Or the same type of shows, or something along those lines, and I think they forget what that feels like.
Right.
So it, whether it's been buried or whatever, or it's just a form of survival, when that feeling is gone, then it's become, they'll say it's just a job, but really it's like the art has been lost. Do you have anything that you take your clients through to help them get reconnected?
We just did it.
I know. I was like, oh, that feels so nice.
And what that is sure, there's all kinds of processes and there's names for it. And I've got, I should turn my screen. It's a whole wall of books with all kinds of great resources. But really what it is finding out where have you had that feeling before. And if you're young and you haven't ever had it before, which doesn't, actually most of us have, so that doesn't happen that often. But wherever you've had it before, if you don't remember having had it before, can you imagine what that might feel like to be living your dream, to be doing what you're here to do, and remember that moment when you did that the first time or the most extraordinary time. What did that feel like? And what, if you can imagine, would it take to feel that again? What would you have to be doing? Right?
Do you ever have clients come in and you take them through this process and then they go, oh my gosh, I'm in the completely wrong thing. It needs to be this instead. Like they have a complete 180.
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
And that's great because better now than later. Right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I feel like there's so many artists that get kind of stuck in what they think are parameters. That I can only do these things when I think about my friends that are wealthy artists, and I mean I feel like they're wealthy not just in their career and their bank account, but also as a person they're wealthy.
Yeah.
They have a lot going on. I call them multi-hyphenates because they're not just they've taken the blinders off and they're allowing their creativity to just kind of flow, and it's creating all these different avenues, but it's all coming back to that thing that you're talking about, that feeling that's at the bottom of it.
That's right. And I really want to make a practical point here. I'm close to 50 myself. I have 3 teenage kids that I'm the single mom of and essentially sole provider for. And there are practical issues that come into play when you're wanting to make a change in your career. And I'm very tuned into those. And there are strategies and ways to accomplish whatever, because I know that would be one fear that would come up. Well, I've always done this. I've always done it this way. This is what I know how to get work in. I can't see myself having the energy to figure out how to change it now, right? You hear that kind of stuff. And we can just sit with that and really pick it apart and first of all, assess if that's really true. And secondly, right, just really do some reality check. And secondly, look at how important is it to make the change to you? If you're really driven by an awakening of a piece of your soul, you probably don't want to spend the rest of your life kicking that poor little piece of your soul back into the closet. So how important is it to you to live from authentic, real self-expression and make sure that you know that when you're at the end that you have not left any, you haven't held anything back, really.
Yeah.
Because what are you going to do with it if you held it back? Oh, wait. I'm almost dead. But I have one more, right? And I just think that's a sad way to go. And we may not, especially very creative people, get everything expressed. But if you've gotten the essence of it out there, then you can really kind of be peaceful throughout your life and die peacefully too, knowing that you didn't leave it in the closet, right?
Or the basement.
Or the basement, exactly. And that might look unexpected. You could be at 20 convinced that you're always going to be a singer and then discover that there's something else, maybe 10 or 15 or 20 years later, that singing was the right expression of it for a while, and now it's something else.
You're bringing in a wonderful point, which is impermanence.
Right.
Because they want to say, I am a singer, and they want to identify with that and believe that that is everything that they are. So if something comes into their sphere that challenges that, then there's a challenge of the identity. There's a challenge of who they are, and it kind of turns into this self-worth spiral, and it's...
Right.
Oh my goodness.
I say this, actually, when we spoke earlier. I am a singer versus I am a person who sings.
Yes.
Right. And I think that's a really beautiful way to put it. It's probably true that I am a soul who, whatever the doing is. Because really, you never know. We could end up, knock on wood, this doesn't happen, but we could end up, quadriplegic or blind or whatever. Things happen. And so what's really, really important, I think, for all of us is to be connected with who we are at our essence. And that essence of who we are is there no matter what. Now, that doesn't mean you wouldn't have grieving if you lost some important mode of expressing something. Of course you would. And there would be love and compassion and sensitivity around going through that. But at a certain point, you get to choose. We're back to that very powerful word, between giving up on everything else in your life because it doesn't look the way you thought it would, or figuring out how you're going to choose to live anyway.
Yeah, and also going back to your point, I loved at the beginning of the conversation where you're talking about, tying everything in where you're putting your energy, that you're doing it the same way. Because a lot of artists, they take other jobs to support their art until they can sustain themselves on their art.
Right.
And so, yeah, they can really get stuck in the false identity of that as well, because they're hating their job and they're hating the way that they're earning their living, and they're not getting what they want from their art. So it all really ties in. Actually, I would love to know what you would say to a client who's kind of in that stuck place with, I wait tables at night and I absolutely hate it. I'm not getting the jobs that I want. They're not picking up my manuscript. They're not buying my painting. Like, what would you say to the client who is just kind of feeling stuck in that place, because they're not only feeling scarcity, they're feeling scarce because their voice isn't being heard, but they're also feeling scarcity in their bank account because they're taking a job that's barely paying the bills.
Right. And so where I would start in that conversation is, probing gently on what's really true and what's not true about the assumptions that that person might be making. And, I'm not going to be that support person who agrees with all of your beliefs if your beliefs are limiting. So that's not always a good fit for everybody. Sometimes they want a supporter who's just going to say, you're right, and you should be X, Y, Z, right? And I am compassionate and loving and totally see the greatness in people, and I'm still going to say, what else might be true? What else might be true? What else might be true? And what other possibilities might there be? And if I get a lot of, I've thought of all of them, and it's impossible because of, I try to go left and I can't, and I try to go right and I can't go backwards and I can't go forwards and I'm stuck. And, if they fight for their limitations, they're going to get to keep them.
Oh my gosh, can I quote you on that? That's
sure.
Fabulous. That's fabulous. It's so true, right? If you're gonna hold them close to you and say, no, these things are true, and this is what I live on, this is how I exist, yeah, you'll get to keep them.
Right.
And the irony of that is that a creative mind is an open mind.
Right.
So, why not bring the creativity to everything? If you're
right.
feeling stuck in how you're earning money, bring creativity to that.
Right, and I would say, too, that there's nothing wrong with keeping your limitations if you want to keep them. If you're really fighting for them that hard, maybe you need to keep them for a little while, and that's okay. Right. There's nothing wrong with it. It doesn't make you bad or weak or anything like that, but I would encourage anybody who wants to do that to fiercely own that choice.
Right. Yeah. So I would love for you to talk about, for all of our directors and choreographers and artistic directors, like the leaders that are within the arts community, what are the tools for leadership that you would impart on them?
Yeah, so I work with leaders in all areas. It's nonprofits, spiritual leaders, business, and all of that. And really, the tools aren't any different. Because if the individual leader is able to get very grounded in and connected with what it is that drives them to do what they do, and then they are in their organizations with their people, choosing love over fear, choosing real truth and authenticity over hiding, and so not putting on the I'm the leader, bow to me, because that doesn't get anywhere. And there's a lot of that in the art world and performance world. And that's all fear, right? Mm-hmm. If I don't put that on, then they won't know. If I don't act like a diva, then they won't respect me. If I don't put on airs, then they might think I'm ordinary, which is, of course, our big fear when we do art, right? So that's about self-esteem. That's about self-love. So we go there first and kind of look at it. How is that for you? Kind of thing. So if they can choose love over fear and authenticity and truth over hiding and fierce ownership, then what happens is their entire organizations get elevated enormously, actually. And they now, as a leader whose role it is to empower their creative team to give the best that they have to the audience, to the receiver of whatever it is that's being produced. Wow, that's extraordinary leadership. And sometimes it doesn't look like the leader is going to get the kudos for that. Sometimes.
Right.
But in the end, they always do.
Right.
Because their team knows, right?
And not only that, but the project itself is elevated. Everything is elevated. I had interviewed Jeff Whiting, who's a Broadway director, and we had such a huge conversation around collaboration.
Right.
And the importance of it. And he meant all the way from the director, like every single person that is involved in it, that it really, the power that comes when everyone is on the same page, because then that product that you're putting out, that everyone has worked so hard. I mean, you think about when you see a movie and the credits of everyone that worked on that movie. It's like so many people came together to create this incredible thing that we get to enjoy. But it's like, oh my gosh, the power that happens from people being on the same page, it's phenomenal.
Yeah. My sister's an entertainment lawyer, actually, and sometimes her name shows up in the credits because she did the deal. And I remember, she's older than I am, so I was very little when I would go, and she was at Columbia Pictures for a while, and I remember going into their screening room and watching the screenings of the movies before they came out, back when I lived in New York City. And I thought it was so cool that she was getting on those credits. And, she's a lawyer. She didn't paint or act or do any of that stuff, right? And I have heard, now that I'm older and she's older, she's been able to tell me more and more of the stories. And it is a huge difference at no matter what piece of the project you're working on to have everybody on the same page versus those teams that are tearing each other apart. And it actually, I can tell you, as a great consumer of movies, that always shows when we're sitting in the audience. We can always tell. Yeah. And that's where congruence really matters, because honestly, we think we're hiding stuff and we are not. People know when we're full of baloney. They do. And they know when we're putting a fake smile on. Even if you think you're a great actor or actress and you think you're hiding it, you're not. People know.
Well, and that congruence then becomes both ways, coming back to what you said at the beginning. It's like if you are able to be congruent within yourself, you're going to be able to be congruent within a larger collaboration. That then it's like you've got your own little circle spinning that's going to help create this big circle spinning, which really is the truth of all things. Like we are all really interrelated.
Right. And the thing of it, you asked about the leaders of these organizations. I mean, there's lots of work to do with them individually, but there's also really great team building stuff you can do. And I can do. I don't know if you can do it or not, but you could if you wanted to do. But that's stuff that I do.
I'll leave that to you.
Okay. And but it can be done, right? And it's really fun, and it's not your everyday ordinary stuff. It's real good communication skills, and how does a group get a group consciousness around creating a space of safety and creative empowerment and innovation and truth-telling,
Wow. Well, I feel like you've touched a lot on this, but I would just love the audience to know, because you have so much to offer, that what would it look like working with you if someone was interested in that?
Really, there are quite a few ways to do it, but the best way is for somebody to reach out to me and connect with me personally, and then we'd have a short conversation to find out what the need is and whether it's a good fit and whether all the logistics work for everybody involved. I'm a real big believer in win-win solutions. So that would be the first step, and that's easy. I can certainly be happy to give my phone number to people so that they can take it right now. It's area code 505-690-3354. So 505-690-3354. And then it's easy to go to my website and read some of the articles that I've written and connect with me there. There's a contact form, and that's focusedleadershipconsulting.com. And then the next step is going to be, after we have a short communication, to just schedule some time like this. It can be by Skype, or it can be GoToMeeting, or just on the phone, and we'll see. Usually I have people have some kind of powerful coaching experience with me to evaluate whether this is something that they want to explore further, or if it's, giving a presentation or a workshop in an organization. We look at what that might look like.
Yeah.
So that's how it could look.
And I can definitely say I took on a life coach last year after having massive changes in my life.
Oh, yeah?
And it made such a difference. And now I'm working with a business coach, and it is that accountability that you were talking about, but a specific kind of accountability, the accountability that is lifting you up.
Right.
It really makes all the difference. I can't remember who said this. It was probably someone famous, and I can't remember. But they said, you could do it on your own if you want to, but it'll happen a lot faster.
Right.
If you have the teacher, if you have the guide, if you have the coach, it's
right.
There's so many amazing resources out there, like incredible resources. So why not take advantage to help elevate you on that path? Because as you're going on that new path, you don't know all the answers.
Right.
But there is somebody that's been on that path before you that's really good at it that can guide you.
Right. And I have a rule. I like to see my clients get at least a tenfold return on anything they invest. And I really think about it that way. So getting yourself set up with somebody who's really all about making sure that they are being of service is really important. And, clearly you're that sort of person. I know, I believe I am. I'm sure the other people you're bringing into this summit have that attitude too. And this is a great thing that you've done, because it's allowed people, you were guided by your intuition and your heart to find really good quality people to bring here. And so you've done a lot of the work in advance for the people who are your audience. And they now can kind of know that these people have been through a filter of some kind. And that's a huge service that you've offered.
Well, and now they can choose.
Right, and they get to choose.
And they can take
fierce ownership.
They can take fierce ownership. They don't have. They can say, you know what? I'm done with the victim cycle. I'm done. I don't want to do it anymore.
Right. And I will tell you, I probably ran a couple of victim stories before breakfast today. I mean, it's still going to happen, but we just learn how to notice it and unhook it quickly.
Right.
Right.
So, Lisa, you have a free gift for our audience here today. What is that?
I do. It's a productivity tool, and it's great for people who are really creative, which, I struggle with this. I'm a very creative person myself, and sometimes we can, those of us who are creative tend to think with the end in mind, and some of the details that get us from here to there get a little bit lost. So this productivity tool is a square that allows you to kind of visually put everything that you're up to all in the same place. And it allows you, and it comes with instructions, so you'll get, some guidance on how to use it, but it allows you to limit your projects for the week to just 3 simple things, and, not go victim to the overwhelm. I guess that's what I want to say about it. So it takes overwhelm off the table. And the cool thing is, I myself use it every day. That's why I offer it, this tool. And I have things that I put on there at the beginning of the year that were 1-year goals. I think there are, I'm going to look at it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them that are already crossed off and accomplished. And it's only midway through March. And that's because it focuses your intention really, really effectively.
Oh my gosh, I cannot wait to download that.
Yeah.
That sounds amazing.
It's really cool.
So
So,
that free gift is going to be below, lovely people. You will want to click on that. It's an incredible, I mean, everybody, it's so common. We wake up and it's like you're looking at that to-do list and it just, it can
right.
really catch a lot of people. So how fabulous to have a tool that can be daily and a daily check-in to keep you on your tasks.
Yeah.
Are there any last thoughts that you would like to share with the audience?
I would really say go forth and be congruent and
Mm.
really love yourself first. Choose loving yourself over the fear of looking bad or being seen. Do that. Do that for yourself. The world needs what you have to offer.
Mm. Thank you so much, Lisa.
Welcome.
This has been unbelievable. And to the audience, thank you for being a part of the Wealthy Artist Summit. This is Nikol Peterman of ZenRed NYC. Your next interview will be in your inbox, and I will see you on the other side. Bye.
Bye. Thank you, Nicole.
Thank you, Lisa.